You are the holy grail, the Magdalene. Woman, no need to search any longer. The priest is...
Welcome to the Woman Arising podcast, hosted by Cathy Hartenstein and Zeffi Devi, where we elevate and celebrate inspiring women on the rise. In this podcast, we talk to women from all walks of life about their soul's journey, the obstacles they overcame, and how they embody their feminine power. We hope to elevate women's place in the world, showcase their contributions, and provide inspiration for all women to rise to their fullest potential. Today, our guest is Tryna Gower, a 48-year-old member of the Cree Métis Nations. As such, she has always walked between two worlds. Growing up in northern British Columbia, Canada, Tryna discovered her spiritual gift as a medium at the age of 34, after her Cree grandmother crossed into the spirit world. Able to communicate with ancestors and spirits from the other side for over a decade, she uses her abilities to help people from around the world find closure and connect with loved ones who have passed on. However driven to share her visions, stories, and pathways to eternal peace, Tryna felt called to pursue a new path in filmmaking and is now working on her first documentary, People for Peace, which explores the intersection of Indigenous spirituality and modern life. Drawing on her unique experiences as a Métis woman, Tryna aims to create films that bridge cultural divides and shed light on often misunderstood Native American traditions. When not behind the camera, Tryna can be found online mentoring and inspiring those who are in self-discovery journeys, proving that one can honor ancient wisdom while embracing new forms of expression and making change by learning to understand yourself from the inside out. Welcome, Tryna. It is our honor to have you here today to hear about your journey and connection to your ancestry and how it has helped shape you and inspired your intuitive gifts.
Thank you so much for having me here. I am absolutely delighted, and it's such a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much.
I'm so excited to actually doing this with you because I love Native Americans, and it doesn't matter the nation. And all the way since I was a little girl, that was my thing. I just had it inside of me. I don't know what it was. Just and I live in Greece. I grew up in Greece, so I don't know. It's probably a past life thing. When you heard about Women Arising and you first kind of received, kind of our invitation of coming out, it felt to me like, because I watched the stuff that you were doing about women, it felt like it really suited for us to talk about this together, and I was very excited. But how do you kind of see that Women Arising? What do you feel about that? What kind of feelings it brings up? What kind of intuition it brings up? Tell me all about it. What do you feel?
I love this question because when I visited my very first sweat lodge, oh gosh, almost maybe 18 years ago, I went into this sweat lodge really after my grandma passed, really trying to find that spiritual connection inside of me because I'd spent so much time doing business as a professional photographer. But when I went into that sweat lodge, I came to my knees, and the sweat lodge is really rebirthing and getting to the connection of your soul. And when I was in there for the very first time, I loudly and clearly heard the message, "It is the time of the woman." It was the most clearest statement. It struck me to my core. I cried on my knees. I saw my grandma, and my life has changed since. And since then, when I got that message, "It is the time of the woman," what it felt like to me was that it's always the time of the woman, right? It's always the time of everyone. But in the time of the woman, it means gathering that essence, stepping into what is divine femininity, rebirthing, connecting with birth, connecting with life. What is life? What is the connection? And then it brought me to this feeling and sensation and vision of the gathering. It's the gathering of women, which is what you ladies have created here. We're gathering. And when we gather, wisdom unleashes. Our divine essence unleashes. We can honor each other, we can celebrate each other, and we can learn to understand each other even better.
Thank you for that. It's very powerful. As you were talking about it, I got chills because, I done sweat lodges in my life, and, they do bring you into your knees, but then you get the clear message because you're totally really purifying himself and being so humble on the earth is the most important thing. And we women are the earth, correct? It's very powerful. So
Yeah.
thank you. Thank you for that.
I almost wish I could like coin what you just said, because that's exactly what our mission is. And that sort of deep knowing in that sort of special place that women have, and how powerful that is. And reading all about you and learning about your background, I thought was such an interesting journey that you had. And I'd love for you to tell us a little bit about it and how you kind of got to where you are today, because it sounds like you had a couple awakenings, more than one, in your journey here, and that you've also done this really beautiful job of being able to synthesize these many aspects of yourself. And then where you come from, both your ancestors and geographically, seems to have really shaped who you are today as well.
Yeah, thank you. So there's a lot of topics there that I could go off on. But one of the things I'll try to back up, my husband always jokes and he says, "What personality are you today?" And we just laugh because he's like, "Are you the photographer? Are you the filmmaker? Are you the meditation teacher? Are you the mom? Which one are you?" Right? And I laugh because we are all of those personalities. We are women. We are like a bouquet, right? And so we just chuckle and he just teases me because he gets these different versions, but he also says how that keeps our marriage very interesting. But I'll back up a little bit here. In the beginning, one of the biggest things I did struggle with, and I still dance around in it a little bit, is I have had an identity crisis my whole entire life. So I have two Native grandmothers. One's full Cree, one is Métis. Métis means half Native, half white with a European descent. So my two grandfathers are European, one's Irish and one's Polish. So we have a very mixed blend of family members. And when I was growing up, I was very brown. I had black hair, I had the skin, I had all the things, and I was very drawn to my Cree family. That side of the family was very much traditional Native. We had the full-on alcoholism, we had the drums and the guitars and the singing and the language, and we had the bannock, and we had all of the things. But those grandparents, so my Polish grandfather and my Cree grandmother, that's where I really felt at home. I felt drawn to that place and space. And there was so much love in that house, even though everybody was, drinking a lot and all that kind of stuff. And they were on welfare, very poor people, but lots and lots of love there. And then on the other side, my paternal side, the Métis side, they were much more what I would call in the white lineage. They were behaving and living far more white. So I was confused between the two, like, am I white? Am I Native? But I felt very Native. I was drawn to the Native. I really wanted to be in presence of that stuff. But then there was also behind the scenes, family members Native family members putting down Native lifestyles. Back then, it was a big insult. Back then, it was very bad. Now it's much more honored. But back then, it was like the lowest life, the bottom of the barrel. And even family members would say that. So I was confused as a little kid going, but I can't help it. My skin is brown and my hair is black. And even my siblings, bless their hearts, when we were little, they had very much white skin. With one had red hairish and blonde hairish. And so they were very white looking and I was very brown looking. And they would laugh and they would joke and tease me because I was the sensitive child. They would say to me, "Ha ha ha, you're the Indian, you're the Indian, you're the Indian." And it was a big punishment and a big tease because that was not the thing anyone wanted to be back then. And I had experienced a lot of different racism things at school and such, but it didn't really get me down because I was always seeking. So that was a huge part of shaping me as a human being from a very, very young age.
And what were some of the things along the way that kind of got you to be where you are now in terms of embracing the Native past, and then also kind of opening up your psychic intuitive abilities, and also what drew you to the sense of photography and the artistry of all of that?
So when I was 17 years old, I had an inkling to buy my first professional SLR camera. I loved people. I was a people person, always was watching people. So I started dabbling in photography at 17 with the film and winding it and cranking and learning all of that, and took my first class at a college at age 20.
Hmm.
And so I knew I was going to be with the camera. I was always drawn to that. But then I started shooting these portraits of people, and it took off on its own. I didn't have to try. It just became a career. People, small town, everybody knows everybody, right? So that happened. But what I got to learn through that was how to instinctively respond to all these people slash characters in the scene, right? Because everybody has their own personality, everyone has their own dynamics. So I really got to study human beings through the vehicle of photography, which was not my intention, but absolutely happened. So as that happened, I opened up a design studio and a photography studio in my town in 2010. So I was launching this new studio. I had 7 staff. We were filmmaking, publishing, portrait photography, website development, branding, you name it. We were doing all the things. I was simply the portrait photographer and the owner and the manager. But just as I was setting up that business, my Cree grandmother was passing away.
Mm.
So I had it only open for 3 months and she passed. And I was devastated because my grandma, my Cree grandmother, was really literally the love of my life. Her and I were so close. We were so connected. My nickname was Birdie, and I would always tease her and say, "Grandma, I know I'm your favorite." That's how close we were. And she would always reply with, "You are all my favorite." She would never give way, which I really respected, right? But regardless, because of our connection was so tight, as she was starting to cross, she was still alive at this point, but I could see she was starting to go. And I started getting contacted from neighboring communities and nations about doing photography on their territories because they'd only hire Indigenous people to go to these sacred territories. So I answered the call and I went. And when I got to the lands, I was like, wow, like I was blown away by the feelings, the looks, the people. And I just wanted to do more of that. And my grandmother, my Cree grandmother, she actually was on a journey to take us out of the native traditions because it was so horrible and so hard for her, so much abuse, so much alcoholism. So that's why she married a white man, my grandfather. She was trying to get us out of that pathway. So then I had said to my grandmother, I'm like, Grandma, I'm so excited. I got to go to this territory and I saw this, this, and this. And it was the most amazing thing. And I'm so excited. And she said, very, very disappointed, she said, "I am sorry to hear that." She goes, "I have spent my whole entire life trying to take you out of that. And now you're just going to drag me back in."
Mm.
Yeah. And I said, "Grandma, I'm not dragging you back in. I'm going by myself." Right. And she was disappointed because she had only got to experience the hardships of being an Indigenous woman.
Right.
Was very hard, right? And I felt called and directed to go in and make that better and to fix that and course correct that for our family lineage. So I went, "No, I'm gonna keep going. Sorry, Grandma, but I gotta keep going." Right. So then as she was crossing over, just before she crossed over, and I did write a book about it, I could see she was really close and something, and I intuitively happened, but I didn't know it was really intuition at the time. I didn't realize where I was on the journey. Um, I said to her, she was looking really scared. And I said, "Grandma, why do you look so scared? What's wrong?" And she goes, "I'm afraid. I just don't know whether I'm going up or down."
Huh.
And she was a strong Catholic woman. And I said, "Grandma, you go to church. You're good. You're fine. You're definitely going up." She's like, "Really? How do you know? How do you know?" And I said, "Oh, I know you definitely. Grandma, you're the best. You're totally going up." And I'm just joking around with her, trying to give her a sense of lightheartedness. But I do believe now as a medium, a lot of people, they know when they're going. They know, they can sense it, right?
Mhm.
So it didn't really alleviate her stress, but I had said to her, I said, "Well, how about this, Grandma?" And it just came to me. I said, "How about this?" And she's like, "What?" I said, "How about when you get to the other side, you send me some messages?" And
Mhm.
still thinking I'm just doing this to alleviate her tension, she goes, "No, no." And she had a really strong Cree accent. "Oh, no." And I said, "No, like, let's try it." And I was compelled. I felt super compelled. And she's like, "No, no, no." And she said, "No." And I said, "Well, let's just think about it. Let's just try. If anyone can do it, you and me, we can do it.
Oh,
And she's like, she still was shaking her head. And I didn't realize at the time it was probably kind of messing with her religious aspects of things. It didn't dawn on me though. So then, anyways, we repeat the stories a few times because we were really into the stage of repeating our stories with her at that point in her life. And then I said to her, I said, how about this? When you get to the other side, how about you turn around my pictures? Because in our Native community, family photos are everywhere. Everybody's walls are covered with Uncle Larry 7 times removed. Like there's pictures of every single family member on the wall, even in the bathroom, there's pictures, right? And as a portrait photographer, everybody loved photos in my family. So I had said, how about you mess with the pictures and then I'll know it's you? And she kind of looked at me, but I could see she was starting to consider possibly maybe. And I said, I don't know, turn them around, turn them upside down, make them fall off the wall, like anything with pictures and I'll know it's you. And she still gave me the, I don't know. I wasn't totally buying it. Fast forward to 2010 in March when she was passing away. There was several of us in her room and she looked at me and she called me over. And I said, yeah, and I had been asking my grandma to teach me how to make bannock for a long time because she made it for us all the time, and she wouldn't teach me how to make it. She'd bring the ingredients to my house and stuff, and then she'd stop and go, "No, not today." I was like, "Oh, grandma, like we're so close." And so then on her deathbed, she started kneading the air and with her fists. And I was like, "What is she doing? What is she doing?" And she couldn't talk, her throat was closing. And I said, "Oh, she's teaching us how to make bannock." And my dad looked at me like I was crazy, and I said, no, like she is. I have been asking her for years and she wouldn't teach me, but now she's teaching. I said, Grandma, are you teaching us how to make bannock? And she nodded her head very so slightly. And I'm like, oh, we're getting the bannock lesson. So then we get the bannock teaching and it goes on for a long time. I gently put her hands down and say, Grandma, this bannock is the most amazing bannock ever. It's the greatest tasting, right, Dad? And I nudged him and he's like, yeah, it's great. Right. He's not buying into this at all, but I got to keep going. So after the bannock's done, she grabs me by the hand, just takes my hand, she pulls me into her nose, and she said, you go, telling me it's time for me to leave. And I'm like, uh-oh, she knows she's going. And I'm kind of afraid to see her die. So I'm kind of okay with going, right? But I looked at her, pulled my nose to her nose, and I saw her little tiny gray eyes, and I said, Grandma, do not forget about the pictures. And she could barely talk, but she whispered, do you mean that? And I said, yes. And then she pointed to the door and I left. An hour later, I returned as she had crossed over. And from that point on, the most wildest things happened.
so you left some suspense here for us. I
Yeah.
love this story of this deep relationship you have with your grandmother and that lineage. And we talk about this as being women arising and that power of that, mother, daughter, grandmother, granddaughter bond is such a strong one. And so much of who we become is because of who came before. I think that that's really powerful. And I think it's interesting that this passing, that obviously I'm sure there was a lot of grief surrounding it, and this important person and this loss was also this beginning and this birth and this sort of revelation for a whole aspect of yourself that you now sort of lead with. It sounds like that's a really big component of who you are. But I am sort of dying to hear about the pictures.
Well, my grandmother, she was the last full Cree Indigenous person in our lineage. So now we are not full anymore because she left that line, right? So it was really important. And so I feel like not only my love for her, but a big push from the universe. Like, I know I'm being guided to do this. I know I'm being directed to do this.
Yeah.
So the first thing that happened that I can recall, so she died in March, and in August, so 6 months later, I was sleeping in my room. I sleep very deeply. I'm a dreamer. I dream full on every night. So it's difficult to wake me up sometimes. But I heard this big giant bookshelf fall over in my house and it was loud and all these books fell over. But the interesting thing is I don't have a bookshelf like that, and I don't have that many books. I'm an audiobook queen. So I'm like, so I sit straight up and I say to my husband, who's beside me, who's a firefighter, so he sleeps very, very lightly because he has to wake up for many things. And I said, what was that? And he said, what was what? I'm like, didn't you hear that? It was a bookshelf. He said, no, you're dreaming. Go back to bed. So something struck me. So I got up and I walked straight down the hallway to past my two kids' beds, my daughter's room, peeked in, and between my daughter and son's room down the hallway is this wall of family photos. And I keep walking. My daughter looks fine. I walk down to my son. He's about 4. And I walk down to his room to check on him. And there is a photo, an 11 by 14 photo print of my grandmother on his floor, face up, not a scratch, not a mark. And the nail is still in the wall 2-3 feet away down the hall.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And my grandma used to ooh and coo over my son because she lost a little boy. And I think my son reminded her of her son. So she really attached onto him. And I was like, wow, this thing is a heavy picture. It was the one we used at her funeral. And it was a portrait I took of her. So I was like, wow. So I was like a lottery, right? And I pick it up and I run into my bedroom and I'm like, look it to my husband. And he's like, oh, the house is old. It probably just shifted.
Right.
It's like, yeah, the house probably just shifted, right? And I knew, I knew it was just, so I was like, okay, now what? Well, then my body started going really hot, and then it started going really cold. And then it was just back and forth, hot, cold, and just weird sensations and all these things started happening in my body. And the very next day on that same weekend, I had to submit an application for a business award that I was nominated for, and I had to submit some paperwork, but I was pretty hesitant because it was with a bank, and I thought, the bank of all people should know I should not be winning this award. But if I submit, they kind of watch people with momentum, and maybe next year I could win it. So I was okay, I'll submit the stuff, and I did submit a business plan. So I took my laptop out of my desk, which is a home office, and I emailed myself from my laptop to my desktop, email business plan cover page, something like that. And so I saw it pop up, bing, business plan cover page comes in on my desktop. And all of a sudden, right after, bing, another thing, to Tryna from Tryna. And I went, I didn't send myself 2 things. What's this? I click and there's no title. I click on it and I open it. And it's a picture of my grandmother and my other cousin, who are the 3 of us were like a wolf pack. We're very, very close. A snapshot I had never seen before. That particular cousin at that time was very computer illiterate and didn't even know how to email things. She was very not into electronics. So I'm like, oh. So I yell at my husband again to come running down. And I'm like, oh. It said to Tryna from Tryna. It's now August. It says dated March 20th. She hadn't even crossed till the March 27th. So it was like all bizarre. And then he goes, oh, well, that's weird. And I go, yeah, the house must have shifted. And so then from that point on, there was so many, I could just go on and on and on about the picture stories, but there has been many, many of them. And I laugh because my grandma was always like a really funny character, really kind of sarcastic and quirky and funny. She was so sweet, but she had this little devious side to her that she would poke and prod. One time I was at a neighboring city doing a business lunch meetings discussion and speaking about my book. And I was talking about the picture story. And then as soon as I started saying about the pictures falling off the wall, 3 pictures behind me fell off the wall at the facility I was
Oh
at.
my God. Wow.
And then I laughed all the way home. It was an hour drive, and I just laughed because I'm like, of course you did that.
Well, then that's such a great back and forth that you have with each other and that connection. I am curious, like in this journey and in this process, and you touched on some of it a little bit, but like, what were some of the major obstacles that you had to overcome in all of these sort of aspects of your life? And what of those, how did it shape you?
Well, this is a little bit more difficult and deeper, but growing up in such a sort of poor neck of the woods, we had suffered a lot of abuse, not so much in that side of the family. Like I had suffered sexual abuse, mental abuse, physical abuse, a lot of different, witnessed alcoholism through everything, lots of fighting, things like that. So there was so much density, so much negativity, hardship, density. Um, and that was really difficult. I had my grandparents loved them to death, but I had seen them drunk more times than I can count. Things that leave lasting imprints on your imagination and mind. Like I remember seeing my grandfather picking cigarette butts, stuff like that. Really, really hard stuff. And so I had decided when I was very young, and I remember it was challenging, but I remember going, I think I was in grade 3, and I went, I'm going to divorce this life. I'm going to divorce it. And at the time, there was a show on TV. I think it was called Mummy Dearest or something like that, or some girl, she was divorcing her parents. I can't remember the name, but I went, yep, I'm going to divorce this life. I'm not going to do it. And I made a claim at a very young age that I was done with it. So after 6 years of sexual abuse, I took the perp to court. I did he received a 2-year house arrest sentence, guilty charges on a few accounts, things like that I had to work through, family members who were abusive, things like that I decided and vowed to myself at a very young age that I was better than this. And I somehow knew that. I don't know how I knew that, but I believed it enough to follow through.
Wow, that requires a lot of strength and deep connection to yourself. And, it does sound like that decision to divorce it. I've not heard that before, but I think that's a very powerful way to look at it because it takes back your power in so many ways. And then, you know, just meeting you for the first time today, you just have such a joyful presence and you have so much joy that you bring. And so whatever that healing journey has been for you has been very powerful, or at least it appears to be, and that you do seem to come from that joy. And so, my last question for you here is just how did you get there? Because that's a pretty major shift, to go from some of the stuff that you suffered. Obviously, this loss of your grandmother, this awakening that you had in terms of your psychic abilities, and then, right now it sounds like you're working on things for peace. Yeah, a project titled that. Um, was there a big shift for you, or was it a gradual shift, or what was that process like?
There was a big shift. So when I was in my early 20s, and I remember somebody talking about spirituality. And they said to me, are you religious or are you spiritual? And I didn't really know what either meant, to be honest. But I do remember saying something along the lines of, no, I know I'm spiritual, but I just don't know how. And it was as simple as that. But now I realize that statement back then was me saying to the universe and creator, okay, I'm ready, start showing me, right? And I call that placing your order with the universe, or you ask for something and then it starts being delivered, right? But I still didn't know. But because I was a dreamer, I had this vision of my maternal grandfather came through after he crossed over with some very vivid messages. And he was walking up this path to this house on this acreage with this red barn. And lo and behold, I ended up buying that house with the acreage with the red barn.
Mhm.
And I didn't realize it until after. I didn't do it on purpose, but I went, oh my gosh, this is the place that I'm supposed to be. And then when my grandmother passed at the time I opened the studio, so I opened the photography studio, my grandmother was passing. And a couple years later, I met a medicine man. We spent about 10 years or so together on this journey. And that man really helped me understand what the connection to myself should be about. So basically, it wasn't just healing wounds, but it was more about self-discovery, really focusing on the aspects of ego and what ego is. and how it plays such a huge role in navigating ourselves. And so that's where I've been focusing.
I love it.
It's really powerful because it seems like you've gone through a lot, but you also have rised through a lot. So you are a woman rising in a sense, because that we all have to really honor that within ourselves, and that we have to go through this to get to the next level. And because you've been through so much, and specifically abuse that you had, not just the verbal, but also the sexual, is that kind of made you feel like, am I losing my femininity? Am I who I am as a feminine? And do you really start searching for your divine feminine? And I know because you work a lot with women, the divine feminine that is really, how do you say, um, connected to you. I just want you to describe at times through all this process, where did you figure out your divine feminine with all that you've been through?
I just figured it out.
I love the answer. Okay, we're done.
I spent so much time in my masculine energy, protecting myself, avoiding things, building this rock wall protection shield, that I was as solid as a rock because I had to be. So I know masculine energy very, very well. But in the last few years, I consciously decided to start unraveling my divine feminine energy, which is where I'm supposed to be, right? But I don't think I could know one without the other. And sometimes I think it's true that we do need to learn about the divine masculine for the sake of women and for the sake of men, right?
Right.
But in this moment, I couldn't know myself in the feminine had I not experienced that deep masculine presence as well.
And also, you had to be in your masculine so you can be protecting yourself. That's the major thing. And a lot of women, we go through that, correct? We get into our masculinity before we realize that we need to balance ourselves through, well, to have both in a balanced way. But so if you look back, what it would be a piece of advice that you can give to other women, and also not just about you becoming, balancing your masculine and feminine, but I want to know, as a young woman, because you've been through so much, what kind of advice you give, all of it, not just, to other young women or to other women.
Well, I think I need to start with the older women first because we need to teach the younger women, right? And we need to demonstrate to the younger women what it's like and what it looks like. But we need to start understanding men, male energy, the masculine divine, so that we can place ourselves and demonstrate to those male energies what we are about, how we are, who we are, and safely walk among that energy with confidence, knowing we are who we are here to be without feeling like we're going to have to be victimized all of the time for being who we're meant to be. So I think as women, we need to get really straight with what feminine means and what masculine means. We don't understand the men. We don't understand them. We vilify them a lot, but we don't know them either. And so I feel like if there's more time spent on understanding the masculine and the energy in a divine way, we'll all get along much better. But the young females, so I'll step back a couple statements or questions that you had said is, I didn't let that abuse destroy my connection to my body. I work the other way. I went, pardon the French, but I went basically, screw you, buddy. You don't get to do that to me. I decide what happens to my body. I decide if I like my body. I decide what happens next. You don't win. And that's how I played that card.
That's amazing, because that takes a lot of strength for women to do that, to honor themselves and to honor their body. But my feeling is that you also probably had some some preparation somehow to be able to get to that, you know? There's something process that you did inside yourself to be able to say, excuse the language, screw you, you know? I don't like to speak like that, but I had to say it in
Yes.
this situation. But it had to take a lot of strength. And this is, is any way that you can give me or give us a little bit of couple notes of what did you did, what kind of process you did inside to get there?
I was really young. I was 20 years old when I went to court.
Wow. How old you were when it happened?
From about 4 years old to 11 years old.
Okay.
Long time.
Long time, yes.
Mhm. But I remembered, and I guess, kids are so tuned in. Kids are so smart. And I don't know if it's a past life thing, but I remember thinking when I was very, very young, I don't fit in here. This isn't where I'm supposed to be. This isn't my place. And what happened to me, and I am a Leo rising, so I've got a little bit of a roar. But I remember feeling very young saying, like, you're all doing it wrong. You all don't even have a clue. You all don't even know. Right? And looking back, I was actually intuitive as a very young child. I remember being in the closet talking to angels, and I had imaginary friends and all of that, but I don't claim being an intuitive forever because I didn't really know. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I just could see things from a very, very, very young age that wasn't right. And I, in my own little way, prayed a lot, asked a lot of questions, connected to spirit a lot. But I just kept saying to them, I'm in the wrong place. I knew it wasn't right. I knew it all wasn't right.
So this is going to turn me into it's just intriguing for me to ask you one more question on that subject. So you knew it wasn't you. You knew you didn't fit in. You knew that was, since you were a little girl, but you also knew you had a purpose in the family.
Yeah.
What was that? What do you think that was for you?
Well, I didn't know at the time, but I'm definitely the shapeshifter. And because I came in as this little intuitive ball and chain, or, like they often see me as like a wrecking ball because I would take down the things that don't work. And it's not comfortable for other people. But I have committed so much to the line behind me that I'm okay and committed to it.
Thank you. That was amazing. That's a good answer. And also how, my other question is, how do you cultivate your femininity now? I know you're married, you have 2 children. What is the process that you do to really keep your feminine side really, I want to say the word activate. I don't know why, but that's the word that's because I kind of follow those questions intuitively. So yeah, because it feels like you're activating something very deep and powerful within you. So, and maybe an advice that you can let others how they can activate that.
Well, lots of times as women, we're very jealous and judgmental of other women, right? It's a thing. And if someone's prettier or smarter, we often feel threatened, right? So because a few years ago when I basically kind of got a download, okay, it's feminine go time. And then I would ask myself a lot of questions like, what does that mean? What is that? And so what I started doing was observing myself and my own egoic behavior around other women. And I'm not perfect, but I do observe it. I'll catch myself with things, you know? And I think if we really started to learn and understand our own insecurities and our own lack of, we could start embracing each other and observing each other's beauty, because what exists within someone else exists within us, right? And so a lot of times sexuality and beauty is played against us. Someone will steal your man or whatever those things are. But we have to stop being pulled into those types of mindsets and behaviors.
Mhm.
And we have to stop acting as that person, because I feel like we're all these characters playing in this big giant film called life, and we change and we evolve, and some of us have to experience this stuff in order to change and evolve and heal ourselves. So sometimes we're prone to jealousy because we need that in our life lesson.
Mhm.
But until our ego can spot it, we can't transform it.
That's
Very powerful. Thank you. And also, you honoring the female lineage with your grandmother. That's pretty powerful. Again, because you're clearing a lot of that old karma and whatever they went through. So that's another heavy load that you've had to release. So
yeah.
yeah, very brave. And I understand Leo rising because I'm one.
Me too. We have 3
We
Leo
all-
rising.
That's so great. Well, then you guys know. So what I do now is I on purposely will say, "Oh, I love her hair. Look at how beautiful her hair is. Oh, she has the greatest teeth. Her smile is infectious." Like I'll consciously practice finding those beautiful things that I can just admire.
Awesome.
And like I said, I'm going to tell you, I am not perfect. As Leo risings, we have this ego thing we've got to do, right? But we know it, so we work with it. And I really try not to punish myself if things do arise, if stuff pops up, because I know I'm just constantly a work in progress.
Yeah.
We all, no matter how much work we do, we all are, constantly working to get to the next level. It doesn't matter if we're on spiritual paths, we're born, or we just got on it, No matter what, we have to work on it to release, a lot of lifetimes and a lot of lineage that we carry. So that's
Yeah.
amazing.
Um, yeah, I just think your journey of self-empowerment is very, very inspiring, because I think everybody goes through their things in life, and you know, sometimes when we're in the middle of it, it's so nice to hear somebody who has sort of gone through that and really chosen, because it does sound like it was a choice for you, and it wasn't something that, happened to you, but that you actually said, no, this is how I want this to be. Like something you said earlier, placing your order with the universe, and that's something that you've been able to do over and over and over again. And the universe keeps responding to you. And I think a lot of times we forget that we can place that order with the universe for our own personal empowerment and healing. And I think so often we don't always do that. We feel we get into a victim mode or whatever, or we feel like things are happening to us, and we don't always say, no, we are the masters of the direction that we want to go in. And so it's just so inspiring, and I think that it's no wonder the universe is sending so many avenues through you, because you did, open this channel to let that in. And I think a lot of times we don't do that. So my last question for you today is just, as other women are starting to navigate their path, and Zeffi asked you a little bit about what that advice is, but what's a lesson that you learned along this way? And I know you've shared some of them with us today, but that you really feel like you wish somebody told you and that you think would be really helpful for others.
Well, I kind of want to go back to your last statement about placing your order with the universe, if I can go on about that a little bit more. One final thing I'll share is that when I was probably about 9 years old, I remember laying in bed, and I remember talking to the universe in my own little way, saying, "I want you to send me the best husband in the world. I need him to be a blonde-haired, blue-eyed, good-looking, hardworking man, the good father that accepts me exactly as I am." And that was my order. Well, lo and behold, I'm married to that blonde hair, blue eyed, good looking man, be a fire captain who happens to be a great dad, all of the things. And because my final piece on that was that accepts me exactly as I am, he does do that. So the people that we place our orders with is hugely important to our path. I can be this strong, I can be this confident and courageous because I have a man who I know is anchoring me, a partner that I know that gets me, lets me be me. And I'm pretty sure I'd still be pretty strong without him. But because I have those people supporting and anchoring, like I can't tell you how much I know that that has been a driving aspect of what I'm doing.
Mm.
So when you place your order for people, maybe let's focus on placing orders for people that are in alignment and can assist us and we can assist them, instead of like you had mentioned the victim states and things like that. Like I obviously came here to learn about abuse. It's one of my big life-shaping events. But I also came here to learn how to get out of abuse. And those relationships that we have around us, they are everything. And in order to attract them, we have to be that person to attract them. So I think it all comes back to knowing yourself. And that's what People for Peace is. It's not about just peace and harmony around the world. It's about we can't have peace unless we have peace with ourselves. And we can't have peace with ourselves if we don't have peaceful relationships with the ones around us. So we have to get to know ourselves truly and deeply, navigating things like ego and abuse to find that light and let that light shine and become who we are meant to become.
I love every word that you just said. I think it's so true, so powerful, and so inspiring and beautiful, and really important. And I'm glad that our listeners are going to have an opportunity to hear that because I think it is a really powerful message for now and for tomorrow. So thank you. It's been amazing having you on this podcast, and we'd love to hear about, like, for our listeners, how do they get in touch with you? How do they connect with you? How do they get to participate in all the wonderful things that you're doing?
Well, thank you. So first of all, the easiest thing is just to head over to my website, trynagower.com, Tryna, Gower.com. I also have a channel on YouTube. You can find me there, and that's where my new film will be released here in the fall. So that'll be available, People for Peace, if you want to check that out.
Great. And I really recommend that you do. Just listening and getting to know you today, Tryna, I can tell that you have powerful medicine in you and that you are somebody who really knows how to hold a really powerful space for people in many different avenues. And thank you so much for being our guest today and sharing so beautifully and openly with us and letting us really be a part of your beautiful journey that you've had throughout your many aspects of your life.
Well, thank you, ladies. It's an honor and a privilege to be here. Thank you so much.
It's
Kinnaneskumten.
great. Yeah, it's a great honor to have you, and we wish that we can do more with you because it feels like we're getting connected in a different level. So it feels like we love to have you back on when down the line. So because
Absolutely.
it's really really powerful to share your medicine and to share your work with that you've done within yourself. And to me, that is the most important thing: is to do work with ourselves and not about doing the work for others, is doing first for us. And to me, that was a very powerful message. So thank you, Tryna.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to Woman Arising, where we celebrate the resilience, wisdom, and power of women on the rise. Remember, when women rise, we all rise. If you're ready to embark on your journey of empowerment, sign up for our mailing list at womenarising.com and join our community of strong, inspiring women. To connect with Zeffi Devi and ignite your inner fire, visit zeffidevi.com and sign up to get your free tantric meditation. Let Zeffi illuminate your path, helping you discover the magic and power that reside within you. To connect with Cathy Hartenstein and claim your spectacularness, visit createmorebliss.com and sign up for a free 30-minute consult call where she can help you break through your emotional blocks to success. Let Cathy be your guide on this journey of self-discovery and empowerment. Thank you for being a part of the Women Arising community. Together, let's continue to uplift, inspire, and empower women everywhere. Until next time, keep rising, keep shining, and keep embracing the divine feminine power that resides within you.
You are the Holy Grail, the Magdalene. Woman, no need to search any longer.